This is the Agorist Next podcast. I've got my great co-host Dag with me. How you doing, Dag?
Excellent, dude. How's it going?
Hey, good. Today we've got a very special guest. His name is Colin from Presearch.org. And yeah, how you doing, Colin?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me, and been loving following you on float.app, flote.app, and content you guys are posting. So yeah, thank you so much for all the work you guys are doing.
Yeah, appreciate that, man. I'm really loving now for those of the audience that don't know, Presearch is a search engine like Google, but not like Google. It definitely doesn't have spying and stuff, and you get to earn crypto. So I'm really loving your search engine. Can you tell us more about it, Colin?
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, so I've got another company, Shopcity.com. Like 2011, ran into this situation where basically Google blacklisted all these sites that we operated with a bunch of like city governments and business groups and supporting 75,000 merchants. And we ended up getting into this kind of, altercation with them. And there was an FTC investigation going on, similar to, the Department of Justice one now. And all of our sites were being found on page 8. And so we just realized, like, man, this company has so much power and they almost completely control the internet. And yet they're so friendly seeming, and their product is so slick and simple that people have this implicit trust and this belief that their results are unaltered and algorithmic, and that, almost that they can do no wrong. I mean, they're the most successful company on the internet. They generate more than $150 billion a year in revenue. They control the number one search engine, the number one video site, the number one mapping application, the number one mobile OS, the number one email client with Gmail. And then the list goes on, and everybody completely relies on them like they're a utility, and yet here they are, literally, ultimately coming out of this thing, having this team of people who were manually altering the results. And so it just kind of opened up this kind of viewpoint that, wow, that's kind of scary that, this company has more than 90% market share of search, and that the number 2 search engine is YouTube, which they also control. And so just started thinking about, man, if there was like a way to have like a level playing field for search, where it wouldn't be just one search engine, it would be like a whole bunch of different search engines available through a single kind of interface where you could just like put your query in and then choose where you wanted to direct your search. And so built kind of a proof of concept in 2013, in 2017, when we started playing around with Ethereum, realized that we could create an ERC20 token and use it as like an incentive to get people to search through our interface, even if they were ultimately searching Google through Presearch. Did a crowd sale, went pretty well, brought in a good chunk of revenue to, fund the project, get it up and running, built some prototypes, done a bunch of learning, getting ready to release a new decentralized version in December that is powered by user nodes that everybody will be able to run, and they'll be able to get compensated for the queries that they serve. And in the meantime, we've kind of got this interim search engine that's powered by some APIs that is just an alternative to Google. And it's available at presearch.org. There's a browser extension. You can add it as kind of your favorite on a mobile app and use it as kind of your start page and search there. And there's an ad platform that uses a concept called keyword staking. So if you want to advertise on the platform, you basically have to buy Presearch tokens, and then whoever stakes the most against a single keyword has their ad displayed and basically gets currently all the traffic, and there's no actual charge for it. So that's kind of what we put together, and just appreciate the opportunity to be here, man.
Yeah, that's great, man. You just gave me a lot of info right there. So basically, anybody who stakes gets Well, whoever stakes the highest amount of Presearch token is basically the winner for the for that.
Yeah, so currently it's like a single ad unit. It's at the very top of the results, super high visibility. We've currently got it marked as an ad, and it just looks like kind of like your normal keyword ads. We might ultimately change that UI and make it more like, hey, support our sponsor, because the people who are staking Presearch tokens are the ones who are like backing the ecosystem and the ones who are really powering the project. And so, I think it should be viewed like the opposite of what an ad is viewed like. It should be viewed as, a supporter, a sponsor. But yeah, it's currently, fairly traditional looking. We haven't rolled that out yet. But yeah, so if you want to choose a keyword like, constitution, and you wanted to have, some type of engagement with the user at the top of the screen, currently like an ad, then whoever stakes the most has theirs displayed, and then somebody clicks on the link. Normally you would get charged in like the Google environment, I don't know, anywhere from like 50 cents to like $300 per click, depending on the term. And so yeah, currently there's like no charge on that. So it's kind of an interesting opportunity, like when these new platforms come out, like when Facebook first came out, for instance, and people started marketing on it, those who really, kind of did it first, they ended up, doing really well with it. So what I'm hoping is that the people who are going to adopt it are going to be, free market, free thinking, projects, individuals, and that they'll be able to be the main beneficiaries as it grows and we start to get more users on the platform.
Cool.
Yeah, that's really neat, man. So you had mentioned like, like Google, like doesn't necessarily have, like people's best interests in mind or actually being like a good search engine. They're kind of either in the back pocket of governments or one way or the other. And, one good example of that is like things that they do like in other countries. Like I hear, like they, like what they do in China to be able to operate, obviously they are just willing to do whatever government of that country says. Are you guys able to like operate it like worldwide, or like are you in like, can people in China like use the service, or is it really that controlled?
So currently they could. We're not aware of any blocks to the service anywhere. Basically the way that it's we started off centralized. It's been like highly centralized, and the plan is over time, and what we started doing in like this next release where it's actually being powered now by nodes that users are running on their laptops or on their excess data center capacity. If they've got a virtual machine or something that they can install this on, it runs in a Docker container. It's kind of pretty ubiquitous, the ability to just drop this thing in and not have to do anything. There's no configuration at all. And so yeah, that's kind of the next step in December. And then ultimately we see, as likely the powers that be, or, the elites, whoever they may be, through big tech and through, governments, continue to clamp down on free information, that, likely they're going to be, utilizing all the different channels that are available to them. So, I mean, first thing is, shut down a hosting provider. That's pretty easy. If you want to shut down an AWS account or something, Amazon's not going to bat for you. Like, your cloud hosting provider is not going to bat for you if, somebody comes in with a request. So there's that, above that, there's the DNS system, which is controlled by ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. It's probably the most stable organization on earth as far as having, kind of total monopoly for one, and then having, this set of protocols that are fairly independent from any single nation state and are fairly, transparent and evolved, but ultimately still they respond to requests from various organizations, and they've been proven proven to take action. I mean, if you're doing like a civil dispute, basically, they've got a thing called the Uniform Domain Dispute Resolution Process, or maybe it's just the Uniform Dispute Resolution Process, UDRP. And so, when they do that, there's kind of like a process that you go through. So if I, put a filing in that, hey, you were incorrectly using a domain name that was confusingly similar to my registered trademark, and you were doing it in a way to confuse, visitors, something like that. I mean, then I can go through that process and it works pretty well. But if you come in from, a nation state or one of, the alphabet agencies and say, hey, we've got whatever this is, but it's formal, it's through the legal process. There's, it's within the jurisdiction. They put that type of request in, then your domain name gets shut down. And so, I mean, that would be a place where something could be blocked. We're, hoping to, as it gets, user adoption, to be able to use like unstoppable domains, unstoppabledomains.com, or, the Ethereum naming system, ENS, so that, people could start to resolve access to the platform through, a blockchain based domain name system that was immutable and, censorship resistant. And when you've got those things in place, and then, depending on how you set it up, as far as if it uses, different, protocols or ports or things that are, kind of standardized and can potentially be blocked at the ISP level, then there's potentially some censorship there. But it's a lot more difficult than just, these kind of global censorship, like off switches, almost like what you've got, where everybody's, kind of been sharecropping on Facebook or YouTube or whatever. And then like you wake up one day and just your account shut down and there's nothing that you can do. You are just your host. You violated the community guidelines. You've been turned off. Those are the things that are most concerning. And if you can, avoid those by using some decentralized platforms, decentralized technology, and then ultimately, if you can use that to host the platform, we're also doing a pilot project with a project called Threefold, THREE, fold.io, and it's a decentralized cloud hosting platform, kind of like Filecoin or IPFS. So, if you can use those things, then ultimately, yes, you can still be stopped, but then you've got people who have to put in requests with ISPs. And that's not a global thing. That's more of a local thing. Now that you've got some alternatives that are starting to pop up that are global, that could potentially be censorship resistant, like, Elon Musk's Starlink, which might be completely the opposite. Ultimately, you still might have these like interesting ways to just, access the information that you want to access.
Nice. Yeah, if they can, keep it kind of decentralized, it's a good way around that. Otherwise, yeah, it sounds like they at least got a few steps to go. Yeah, totally, man. But yeah, I mean, even just anything at this point, stepping in the right direction towards decentralization. I mean, there's some interesting technologies that are coming out. There's some interesting people who have kind of like, demonstrated that are actually freedom oriented. And, some people are starting to, really just make a firm commitment and, be pretty believable based on their actions and based on, who they hang out with and the things that they, say and think, and the people who they are, close with in their circles and stuff. I mean, you're starting to see that, yeah, there's some people out there that are doing some interesting things that you can probably trust to, some degree, possibly a large degree. And so that's, kind of exciting and reassuring, because I mean, the big tech platforms, I mean, like, it's shocking how much trust we have put in with them, despite all the signs and all the things that they have done to demonstrate that they are
not committed to freedom at all. They are ultimately, totally beholden to, the powers that be. And in some cases, it's just an ideology, and an ideology that just at its core is really not pro-freedom. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the time is now to build some alternatives and start really gaining adoption of some alternatives. Because, I mean, if we don't do it, it's too late. I saw the video that you guys posted of, was it Carl Schwab, the guy from World Economic Forum, talking about, the next big thing, which could be, a million times worse than COVID, talking about, the grid going down, basically. I mean,
yeah, Klaus Schwab. Yeah, he's had a few. They did the big World Economic Forum thing recently too, and yeah, it's really terrifying how open they really are about it. Right.
And that's it. I mean, it's like, like you got people who just like, I wouldn't even say their head has been in the sand. It's more like your head has been in the clouds, and they've just been, kind of fully trusting in all these different things that to others who are more questioning in nature have been looking at possibly for years or decades, and going, oh wow, something is wrong here. So these things don't add up. There's an ulterior motive. What is it? You start trying to figure out what it could be. Nothing really ultimately makes a ton of sense. So you end up speculating and stuff. But at least you're questioning. And, there are just so many people who've looked at this stuff and they've just accepted it as face value. And, they've put all their trust in, and, it's like jarring for them to try to like think about the fact that some of this stuff is going on, and they just, they're closed-minded to it is really kind of ultimately what it is. But you start to connect some dots for people, and then they're like, their mind is blown, because literally they have put it all out there. They've written books like The Open Conspiracy. They literally have been telling us for decades that this was what they were going to do. And now, we're kind of in the end game state, and it's like, they just don't give a shit anymore. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's tough to, just kind of like sit on your hands and just like, yeah, hope that everything's going to be okay. Cause like they've kind of told us what they're doing, and it's kind of not that positive.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, man, you just hit it right on the head. And I kind of wanted to get into your ERC20 token, if you don't mind. It looks like a good little project. So ERC20, so it's based off Ethereum, right?
It is. Yep. It's an ERC20 token. We actually just did a token swap in October. So the Presearch token was listed on KuCoin or KuCoin, however you want to pronounce it. Exchange that got hacked. Still don't know exactly what happened there, but they, whoever, took the tokens that were there, I mean, it was like over 100 projects. And, $280 million, I think was what they had reported at one point, worth of tokens. And so anyways, Presearch was affected by it, and it was like a pretty meaningful chunk of our circulating supply. And so we basically decided to do a token swap. We took the opportunity to create a new token. It's a new contract. When we first created our contract in 2017, we really, there weren't a ton of resources out there. I mean, not like there are now for, best practices or like, just frameworks or templates basically that you can utilize that have been kind of, tested widely and are fairly bulletproof and fairly full featured. So yeah, we kind of went from this, it was a smart contract, but it was almost more like a dumb contract. It just did the bare minimum things, enabling you to, swap tokens between wallets effectively. And it was actually limited. We locked it down because we didn't know kind of, what could happen. And so we prevented some of the functionality that, as you know, now we're in 2020 and stuff, and things are more evolved, and we're seeing more of the, you know, the use cases and things that, you know, token was a limiting factor. So it was actually kind of a bit of, you know, blessing in disguise. It just, you know, forced us to take action and you know, upgrade the contract significantly. It's still super secure. It's probably more secure now, and it's got, you know, some interesting functionality currently. It is upgradable, which, you know, means that we can add different functionality and as we go. And then kind of the ultimate vision for this is to, you know, turn control of Presearch over to some type of governance layer, whether that's, you know, voting with, you know, tokens and staking, or if there's some type of, you know, community council. We haven't fully figured that out. We've been kind of doing some experiments and trying to see what other people are doing that works. I mean, I don't know that anybody's figured out, you know, decentralized governance yet, but at some point we'll be, you know, in a position where everybody feels like, okay, yeah, time to, you know, lock in on something, and then we can basically do that and have, you know, the community and the stakeholders, you know, ultimately be in control of the project completely. And it's just, yeah, it's such an interesting time. I mean, the concept of having a you know, token, a utility token, a cryptocurrency, you know, however you want to refer to it, that, you know, ties the interests of everybody together. So in this case, you know, we're tying together, you know, the users and the people who are searchers, people who are sponsors or, you know, kind of advertiser marketers. We're tying together, you know, participants who are helping to build the ecosystem. So, you know, we've been doing like developer grants and community grants, and just, you know, people who are demonstrating, you know, the ideals and who are active in helping to, you know, build the project. They're ending up with tokens, and then, I mean, the founding team, and so to have everybody kind of aligned on this one, you know, mechanism where it's both, you know, value and ultimately governance, is just so different than, you know, like a VC backed project or something, or even a strictly revenue based, you know, single shareholder type company. I mean, like, both those are completely different from having like everybody in your ecosystem on one value unit, you know, everybody kind of working together to, you know, make it bigger and more powerful network, which then, as that happens, you know, the value of the units, because it's a fixed supply, there's only 500 million of them. At some point you kind of reach parity where like you've got like all your tokens have been distributed. There's no more like, you know, kind of kitty or treasury or inventory, however you want to refer to that the project has. And so then you start actually you're forced to cycle tokens. And that's where, you know, you're kind of at like parity with like the scale of the network. But then, you know, there's no more tokens. And so then as the network grows, it can't be, you know, more tokens in the ecosystem. So therefore the value must be funneled back into the token. And so I think this is just such an interesting time to be alive, and an interesting opportunity to experiment with these systems that didn't exist, you know, prior to Ethereum, really. I mean, there were some others like BitShares, but I mean, it's kind of this new world where we've actually got the ability to have this, you know, kind of trust layer and transparency layer and payment layer all kind of tied together with governance. And it becomes just this way to, you know, bootstrap something and then have it be truly community driven. And yeah, I mean, we're early days, lots still that's probably going to, you know, have to evolve over the next, you know, years, but such an amazing opportunity to be able to kind of, you know, be near the forefront where all this insane innovation is happening with some of the smartest and, you know, freest thinking people in the world behind it. and more computing power than Google, and all this just, goodness that is kind of, rising almost like at the same time, almost like as the opposite polarity to all the crap that's happening with, like, the traditional centralized, hierarchical kind of power structure that on the one hand it seems like it's like going to overwhelm us, on the other hand it seems like it's going to blow up and fade away. And I think, if there is to be a fade away, it's going to be based on things like, Ethereum and other decentralized currencies that enable kind of communities, people of like mind and like values, to work together in a way to, create these value exchange systems that actually, reward all of the participants and build, these community resources that operate more like utilities, where everybody has a stake in the thing not getting screwed up. And it kind of facilitates, like, good long-term decision making. Obviously not everything. There's, I saw Pickle Finance, got smoked for $20 million today. I mean, there are people who are using it for, a joke basically, and people who are using it for a scam. But on the other side, if you've got, a different intention and you can see this other world, it's like this incredibly powerful thing that without this thing, a lot of the ideals could never be really realized, because just the systems aren't there to facilitate it and to enable people to align in the way and in the scale that they can now. So yeah, I'm pumped, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And man, your coin just kind of looks like a golden opportunity to me. I mean, there's a max supply of 500 million, so you can only have 500 million of them.
Yep.
It's on a search engine that, in my opinion, is already better than Google. And there's only $2 million market cap here. So
yeah, man.
That's nuts. That's nuts. So yeah. How can I get the yeah, bro. How can I get this thing? So when I go to presearch.org, it says buy token basically, and you can just buy it through presearch.org, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, you can buy it through presearch.org. You can go on Uniswap, which is a decentralized exchange. There's KuCoin. I mean, they've all got kind of their strengths and weaknesses. We're almost at the point with the project where, like, the project itself doesn't have token inventory left. And so, we've been at various points kind of within the evolution of the project last March. So we had to basically issue tokens because, we just didn't have enough. We hadn't minted, up to our total supply, which, we ended up doing when we did a token burn. We, saw kind of the crap that was happening with COVID. And we just decided that, we needed some serious urgency and some serious fuel. And so we did a token reduction. So we went from 1 billion max supply down to 500 million. The project was sitting on ultimately hundreds of millions of tokens. And we just realized that, hey, if we cut it down to 500 million, then we would have less than 100 million within, the project for its, sale and incentivization. And then at that point, we would need to start basically cycling tokens from, open markets or from users or whatever, where we, end up buying them and then, reselling them through the marketplace to advertisers, supporters, whatever. And so we had this kind of window, February, January, February, March, basically, until we did our token mint last either March or April, that brought us up to 500 million. And so we were buying them from, holders, because we had people coming in, they wanted to, buy them with Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. We have, 10% markup basically on the marketplace, which kind of accounts for slippage if you were to purchase them on, an aggregated centralized exchange. And so, it enabled us to like basically buy them from people and then resell them and break even on it basically. And as that started happening, that's, well, you can look at CoinMarketCap. And so like, we're probably, I'm going to say 3 months, maybe, if we really, really stretch things, 6 months away from just being that way perpetually forever. There's nothing that we can do about it. There's no more tokens that we can create. And that is, kind of exciting. Where we're at right now, honestly, have barely promoted the actual token. We have really just been focused on building this ecosystem, because the ecosystem is what we're actually trying to accomplish. We went out, we got a bunch of users, and then we, went through a couple of iterations of an ad platform, realized that people didn't really want to spend their tokens on advertising because they thought that they might change in value, possibly increase in value. And so they didn't want to spend them. So then we kind of went back to the drawing board. We came up with keyword staking. So you can attribute value to having that ad position, but you don't actually consume your tokens. You just, commit them. And it's a huge difference. And as soon as we did that, then it was like, okay, we've found product market fit. The people who are staking love it. We ultimately may need to have a small consumptive charge on the tokens. We're not sure yet. But for now, we've committed to having no consumptive charge and having just staking. And it seems like it's going to work. And so, yeah, it's just been getting all these different, kind of dots connected. Next thing after that was, okay, yeah, keyword staking works, but the ads themselves are being displayed on, our kind of a little bit rudimentary search engine. It's not bad. It's actually pretty good, as you said, but it's compared to what we have coming out in December with this decentralized experience using the user-powered nodes. I mean, it's just way better. Honestly, the user experience is way better. We now have a much better place to display those, ad sponsor units. And now we have, more of a sticky experience that's going to enable us to go out and market the heck out of this thing and get a whole, whackload of users on it and come at it from this kind of, censorship resistance position, which is becoming just really, important. And as we get those, people on board, the value of those positions really increases, which will lead to more staking, which will lead to more purchasing. And then, we've got the demand side of the token equation, figured out pretty well. And then that enables us to like ratchet back, the current incentives that we're rewarding people with. They're getting like a quarter token every time they search, up to 32 times in a day. And so there's been this opportunity for people to, earn some tokens. For the most part, it's been pretty low. It's been pretty distributed, which is kind of nice. 1.6 million users so far, a couple 100,000 that are active on a regular basis. And most of them would be in like the, tens to hundreds of tokens. Occasionally you get people that are, into the, single digit thousands. So it's kind of like a nice distributed holding of these. And so, there's been that opportunity, but yeah, it's kind of like that's probably running out a bit. And now we're starting to, I would say probably the opportunity is more on the purchasing side, especially with the current price, which is insane. It's hilarious. So, yeah.
Man, I could just see a huge opportunity right now. Like with this, like somebody could buy a whole bunch of tokens, right? And have them go up in value. And it's like, okay, now I want to do my ads. And I bought so low that it's hard for somebody to be able to stake as much as me.
Yep.
But early bird gets the worm, and you guys heard it first here on Agorist Nexus. So I'm just glad that I get to buy some right before I get to publish this podcast. So
Well, Well, honestly, like you guys are actually kind of, I would say, the first interview that I've done where I've like, kind of exposed all this stuff, literally. You are the first. And I'm happy for it, man. Like, this is the community that I want to, have some type of, dominance, or if there's going to be somebody who's going to, have, an outsized influence, this is the type of community that should have it. So I'm pumped, man.
Absolutely. And, I truly just appreciate it so much because I've been censored time and time again. I mean, Facebook completely removed 3 of my pages that had lots of reach. I mean, we're talking one page had almost 100,000. So yeah. And Google wasn't very nice to it. Like, I think I was telling you this before the show, but I would search our name and we would be on the second page on Google. And that's not really the case anymore. We get so much traffic, but yeah, we've just experienced, shadow banning pretty much on every, I mean, there's, social media platforms that don't do that. And I advise and even urge our listeners to go to these other platforms like Presearch for searches, Flow as like a Facebook, Twitter replacement. There's all kinds of platforms out there that you guys can find. And if you guys find something, let me know too. Don't be afraid to email me at Agorist Nexus at protonmail.com. But yeah, man, this looks like just such a great opportunity. Now, are there, how does privacy come into play here, if you could?
Yeah. So what we're pumped about, especially with the new version, the decentralized version that's coming out. I mean, it's just like, multiple steps further than our current one. Our current one, we've got APIs and stuff. And I mean, it does basic privacy protection. I mean, compared to, Google, it's, you're not getting tracked and profiled, to your login account, or, the account that's associated with your email or your maps or any of the other things. So, I mean, it does that. And in general, I mean, like, we are not storing, searches or anything like that. We're basically building similar to how we built the smart contract initially. It's kind of like a dumb version. I mean, there's really there's no personalization. It's not storing your stuff. The next version is like that, but even more so because of the fact that, it's being distributed out to these nodes. I mean, you're kind of like, widening your footprint, even, so to speak, a little bit more. I mean, like, what's going to show up anywhere out there really has nothing to do with you. It's almost like a proxy, maybe not quite a proxy, but it's pretty similar to a proxy. And then what we see for like personalization and storing information, it will probably ultimately, come and be something that you can opt into, but, basically storing it locally. So it's on your device, or it's on, some type of file that you can, download, transport. You could potentially have it, plugged into, a USB drive or something even eventually. But we want people to have the same ability to have convenience as, platforms like Google offer, maybe even more so. I mean, hey, there's searches that I run frequently. I wouldn't mind personally not having to type them and just being able to like go down a list, and click on a link. But, the only way to really facilitate that with, true privacy would be to enable you to host it yourself. And there's just so many ways potentially to use all of our different devices. I mean, right now, I think you could do it on Android. You could probably run one of the Presearch nodes. I think there's like a Docker app or something for Android. But, eventually to enable people to like basically be operating a node on their mobile device, and then have their mobile device also store their own personalized, settings. So, hey, here's your preferences, here's, your history, whatever. Yeah, current way that it works is it's just, kind of acting as a layer between your searches and your outward profile. And then the next version is pretty much, pretty similar to a proxy and, not storing queries and nothing identifiable as far as, the information that you're inputting and, what you're looking at. It's, and the ultimate vision for it is to have it be 100% open source, and set up in a way that anybody can look under the hood and kind of see how the information's flowing and ensure that, things are doing, what they appear to be doing. And what we see is kind of like an interim step would be going to, some trusted people out there who are, expert developers and giving them access to, the platform before it can be, 100% fully open source, fully decentralized, and just saying, hey, here you go. You've got the keys. You can get in here at any time. This is not like a spot check audit or anything. This is like, hey, you're one of the trusted individuals, is, connected to the core community of values represented by Presearch. And, these people can go in and, validate that everything is cool and everything's kosher. And, then people can basically, kind of rely on that opinion. And in some cases, that's kind of what happens anyways, because ultimately most people don't know how to, go in to a GitHub repo or go and, view the source code for an app to see what is actually happening. You kind of need, that level of knowledge and experience to be able to actually do that. So that's kind of, how we see all that playing out.
Do you have any questions, Dag?
Yeah, I guess I got one. First, I gotta say, I'm like you, man. I've been hung up on this keyword staking ever since you first started talking about it. Like, man, this is great. You gotta get in on this now.
Cool.
Yeah, so I think we were talking before the show, and you're saying Google has something like, what is it, 90% of the search on market share is the right word there. But
yep.
They do something like 90% of the searches. So what do we do to get like pre-search? I mean, I think asking for 90% might be a little greedy. I mean, even if just one company were to gain like 20% would be astounding, right? Compared to Google. So with Google being just the go-to currently, in public society, how do we get people to sort of shy away from them and start to explore other options like Presearch or something?
Yeah, man, appreciate the support and the kind words about staking, and that's awesome that you've been using it. And basically, I mean, it's there's kind of been this over the past, what is it? I guess 8 months now. There's been this polarizing that's happened, more and more, and it seems like there's kind of like an agenda that's coming out that's fairly clear, and it resonates with half the population, and the other half thinks it's frigging insane. And so I think we're really fortunate in that the market has become more pronounced and more educated. People are seeing the need more. I mean, we're still probably at the vitamin stage and not quite at the painkiller stage, as far as, it's kind of, a nice proactive thing to switch your search engine to something that's not, profiling you and controlled by, whoever the powers that be. But, sooner rather than later, as we've seen, it's going to become an actual painkiller, and it's going to be like, oh my gosh, I need to protect my searches. I need to, stay off of this radar. And, then I think, you're going to have people who are even more actively, searching out solutions. And I mean, like, there's, like, to go to your comment about, market penetration, I mean, like DuckDuckGo, they're big now. They're huge. They, a lot of people don't realize how big they are. They're tracking like, over $1 billion in annual revenue. They only have about 1% of the search market. They're still tiny, but even 1%, when the leader with 90% is doing, like 120 plus billion in ad revenue off of their search engine, not all their other revenue, like just their ad revenue from AdWords, 120 billion. to get 1% is $1 billion market up. So yeah, we definitely do not need or even anticipate in any way ever supplanting Google. But I mean, to start, we can go to this polarized group that is at least starting to talk about it. I mean, I've just started kind of peeking into it, like Parler, for instance. I mean, my favorite's Float. I really love Float. I mean, there's some other alternatives that are interesting as well, and run by crypto people and people that we're pretty friendly with. Float I really like, and I've been talking with Kingsley, and I really love the vision that he's got for Float, and I like the current user experience, and it's where I'm active right now. I don't know if you guys are feeling the same way, but I mean, you got these groups of people now, like, man, if Parler has more than 10 million users in the past 6 months, I mean, we can go there and try to like really connect with that audience. It's, same as kind of keyword staking. It's like an untapped opportunity right now. And these people are all looking for an alternative. They're, like completely sick of Facebook and Twitter and Google and Amazon. Hey, let's give them an alternative.
Right on, man. That's great.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's like, weird times. It's creepy times. It's scary times.
Definitely.
Right. It's like,
but it's also exciting, right? I mean, there's a lot of possibility, that comes from this too. I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible.
Exactly. It's like, in all reality, man, like the last 8 months have been like some of the best months of my life. And, we've had some, like, just so many lemons into lemonade kind of situations. I mean, we've got a guy who's been advising us since really the start of the project, Trey Granger. He was the SVP of engineering for LucidWorks, which was or is the largest open source search company. They are like the top contributors to the top open source search platform, which is like called Solar or Lucene. He, wrote a book on it, and he's been, very involved in that whole open source search space. And some COVID stuff happened, and we were able to bring him on as our CTO full time in June, which has been like absolutely amazing for the project. And there's just been so many things where it's like on the outset, it's like, oh man, this doesn't look good, and then it's like somehow it ends up turning into this like amazingly positive thing. And yeah, you definitely need to, you need to attract that. You need to focus on that. And that's what, we do, because yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, I was a pretty heavy doomer in like 2003, 2004. And I was like at a point where I was like, okay, should we be going to live in the woods in northern BC, or, should we stay kind of connected to the grid and try to work through, business and, free markets to like, do stuff. So we ended up, working on shopcity.com since 2000, and continue to evolve that business, which is kind of like, enabling each community to build their own Amazon.com like site marketplace that's powered by their local businesses, which honestly, there's so much like synergy with you guys on that too. Honestly, we should talk. But yeah, it's kind of, just been focusing on, what could be, and all these really positive things are happening. And it's just, yeah, the polarization, as much as it's difficult, right? And it's jarring to people when, everybody becomes so polarized. And to me, it was like the initial polarizing event was 9/11, and it's only kind of snowballed since then, right? You guys are probably similar.
Yeah, I'd say 9/11, it gave me a sense of like something's not right here.
Yeah.
But the Iraq War is what turned me into a libertarian. It's like, there's lots of, bad men that run different countries. And it's like, I don't really feel like we should be the policemen of the world. And, there's no weapons of mass destruction. To me, back then, it was obvious that it was just a lie. So that's really what turned me and my brothers into libertarians was the Iraq War, for sure.
Makes sense. Yeah. And then so you got, 9/11, you've got the Iraq War, you've got the 2008 financial crisis, you've got, kind of big tech getting into this just, position of massive, dominance. And then you've got, COVID, and then you've got this whole manufactured race war, which is honestly to me so unfortunate. Like, it makes me so sad that card got played to polarize people, because I really feel like, so much of this, hate and just, disconnect is being just stirred up. Like, honestly, it like doesn't even exist, but because they are telling everybody that it exists, everybody thinks it exists, and then therefore it exists. It's like really a shame. But I mean, hey, the polarization out of all these things is ultimately drawing, like you and your brothers, a group of people to not right, not left. It's libertarian. It's, looking at it from, a voluntarist perspective, one of non-aggression, one where, we're trying to all respect people's sovereignty as individuals. And, the polarization to me ultimately is, it's along those lines. And so, the people who are seeing that perspective and being polarized in that way, they're self-identifying, there's, groups, there's communities. You guys are one of the important ones. You have had a big presence out in the space. You guys have done amazing work. You've been helping to educate people, the people that have been, watching and listening and reading. I mean, they've all been filling their minds with interesting, positive stuff that makes sense, even when it's, it's negative and it's, polarizing and it's eye-opening. I mean, you guys have taken in the position of bringing into people's awareness, like, the stuff that's wrong with it in relation to, a free society, free individuals. And to me, it's just, it's all this information that has been truly, valuable in bringing people to this realization and this perspective, and hopefully to a position where they're taking action and they're not just, reading and then going about, their daily lives with the people who either don't care or actively are working against it. And so, yeah, I think, to me, this group is achieving critical mass. It's definitely not the entire population, and it doesn't need to be. It just is enough where we can continue to go out and spread good things, because like naturally this perspective, it just aligns with so many people and it makes so much sense. And it's like a breath of fresh air in this world where you're just getting choked with, these perspectives that are so negative. And so I don't know, I think it's gonna all end up, really good. So yeah, that's how I'm hoping that we're gonna all connect.
Yeah, man. We really appreciate that. That's one thing I really love about Agorism, is that it gives us solutions and actions to all these problems. And, there's just so much that we could solve. And, that's why I believe that this, I don't know what you want to call it, political philosophy or just philosophy in general is, so important to me. So was there anything else you wanted to add before we sign off?
Honestly, just, thanks to you guys and to everybody who's listening, and to the community that has been supporting us since 2017. It's been, it's been pretty humbling, honestly. And it's a privilege to be doing this and to be able to, talk to so many amazing people. So yeah, man, thanks.
This is excellent, dude. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited about this project. Really. Thank you. This is great.
Oh man, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, me too. I'll be getting some Presearch right after.
Yeah.
Right after this. That way I can just kind of, try to market Agorist Nexus really. But I've got a quote. Well, unless Agorist, you got something else you want to say before we wrap this up?
No, man. Like I said, this was just excellent. I had a lot of fun tonight. This is great.
Yeah, same. So this quote is by Charles Bukowski. It's really what I felt when I got censored, and he just puts it into such beautiful words. He took it from heart and made it readable. So the quote goes: "Censorship is the tool of those who have the need to hide actualities from themselves and from others. Their fear is only their inability to face what is real, and I can't vent any anger against them. I only feel this appalling sadness. Somewhere in their upbringing, they were shielded against the total facts of our existence." Agorist Nexus out.